Hello, I'm Charla Jackson, president of the Camellia Rose, Georgia chapter of the Links Incorporated. And today, on behalf of our members, we'd like to welcome you to the HBCU Alumni Roundtable. Now, normally the links are all about links, but today it's all about the HBCUs. And we are so excited today to bring you a panel of HBCU alumni who are living examples of the impact of our cherished institutions. And so, without further ado, I'd like to bring you our moderator, Joy White.
Thank you so much, Charlotte, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening as we have an impactful, educational, and inspirational conversation around the legacy and sustainability of our HBCUs. It is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed panelists. First, as a fourth generation dentist, Dr. Sarita C. Buchanan continues her family legacy of providing exceptional dental care to her community. Through her modern and innovative techniques, Dr. Buchanan exhibits the highest level of professionalism and compassion when caring for her patients. Committed to academic excellence, she conducted extensive biomedical research at world-class institutions, including Stanford University and the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Buchanan combines this knowledge with her artistic skills to thoroughly enhance a patient's oral health. Dr. Buchanan is a graduate of Spelman College with a bachelor's degree in science, and has her doctorate of dental surgery from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Welcome, Dr. Buchanan.
Thank you.
We have Michael Curry, who serves as the Chief Health Equity Officer at United Health Group. Mike has led the coordination of health equity efforts across the entire United Health Group organization since June of 2010. He is responsible for the development and execution of enterprise efforts, initiatives, and interventions to identify health disparities, as well as the enhancement or implementation of programs, services, and strategies to eradicate health disparities. He has held roles in both public and private sectors with responsibilities related to disease prevention, wellness, health benefits, and has spent close to 30 years focused on population health management. Michael Curry is a proud graduate of Morehouse College. Mike, welcome.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Nikki Tinsley Harland is the Chief Operating Officer at Paradis Lagardère, a global airport retail company headquartered in France. As the Chief Operating Officer for Paradis, Nikki oversees $1 billion in sales that contribute to the organization's continued success and standing in the travel retail industry. She has leadership responsibility for retail operations, dining, merchandising, business systems, and transformation. Nikki is also a founding member of the organization's Diversity and Inclusion Council. Nikki is a native of Atlanta, Georgia, received her undergraduate degree from Spelman College in psychology, and holds an MBA in marketing from Clark Atlanta University. Welcome, Nikki.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, Mr. Forrest T. Harper, who serves as the president and CEO of Inroads, the nation's largest nonprofit model of salaried and corporate internships in corporate and community leadership development for outstanding ethnically diverse talent at the pipeline and mid-career levels. Forrest proudly serves as chair of the Morgan State Earl Gray School of Business, Dean's Advisory Board, the vice chair of the Morgan State University Foundation Board, Johns Hopkins University Carey School of Business Leadership Advisory Board, and Take on the Race Advisory Council. Forrest, as you can tell, earned his BA in social work from Morgan State and attended executive leadership training at the Harvard Business School. Forrest, welcome to our panel.
Thank you.
As we start to dig in and think about the impact of our HBCUs on our global economy, we want to speak about a few facts. Number one, there are 106 historically Black colleges and universities in our United States of America. Over half of all African American professionals are graduates of HBCUs. 50% of our nation's public school teachers and 70% of our dentists earn degrees from HBCUs. Also, notably for some of our schools, we cannot even begin to count the number of storied alumni, including those that are on our panel, that are shaping our world on a day-to-day basis. So with that backdrop, I'm going to start with a conversation and a question for everyone to answer, but I'm going to start with the ladies on the panel. First, Dr. Buchanan, how did your experience at your HBCU, Spelman, help shape both the individual that you've become, but also your career path?
My experience at Spelman really gave me 4 years of peace. Coming out of high school, I felt like I was in an environment where I almost had to speak on behalf of the entire Black community at all times. I was a representation of the entire Black community. But when I got to Spelman, I was free from that. I was there really to grow personally and to develop relationships with my sisters. I also got to focus on my academics. So the peace of mind and the comfort that Spelman provided me really helped me grow personally and professionally.
Thank you. Nikki.
I would say Spelman prepared me for the real world. It's interesting when you go to an HBCU, individuals may think it's a little sugar-coated or insulated, but being an HBCU in Atlanta and being Spelman, I was prepared for the good, bad, and ugly of the world. And for that, I will forever be grateful, as well as the understanding of forming strong, incredible relationships and friendships, for sure.
Thank you. Forrest. You're on mute.
Was world class. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Was world class. I left a small town in South Florida and I was thrown into a rich treasure of Black authors of books, of Black leaders in institutional higher ed, and entrepreneurs like Earl Graves walked on the campus when I was there. And so it gave me the realization that not only was Black beautiful, but Black was successful. And I got all of that at Morgan before I left.
Thank you. And Michael.
Joy, for me, it opened my eyes very specifically to what Black male excellence looked like. So those who knew me back then would absolutely agree that I was rough around the edges. I was a little young Black boy coming out of inner city DC, raised by a single mother. So everything that you would expect a little Black boy running around in inner city DC would be exposed to, I was exposed to all of it. So when I showed up in Morehouse, and I was a little bit of a unicorn when I showed up in Morehouse because I was there on a tennis scholarship. So as an athlete and as a tennis athlete from the environment I came from, I didn't really have that many. I can't even really point to more than one examples of what Black male excellence looked like. And I got to tell you, even the one or two examples that I had coming out of the DC area, in my mindset was they're not like me. They're far more into their books. Maybe we would call them nerds and things like that, what I would have back then. And I got a chance to get on Morehouse's campus and begin to move around and observe what Black male excellence academically looked like from those that kind of walked, talked, and looked like me. And it opened my eyes to made me start thinking in very different ways about how I should do what I needed to do academically.
Thank you. We're going to pivot a little bit. And if you think about where you are in your career and in your professional title and sphere of influence, and as we think about in this era of hopefully rebounding from the Great Resignation, how do you believe the continued cultivation of HBCU talent is not only important, but more importantly, a strategic imperative to the growth and sustainability of your organizations? And I'll start with Mike.
Yeah, there's a like many other organizations, there's a very significant focus on diversity and inclusion. And we're not unique in that focus. But I'd like to think that our focus is as strong, if not stronger, than many other organizations, especially considering our size and scale. And with that, you start thinking about where is this Black and brown talent going to come from, that is both academically, professionally, and mentally ready to take on the rigors of what a professional life looks like. So that HBCU experience, I think it was Nikki who made some comments about that in her intro. That experience in an HBCU campus not only prepares you academically, but it also prepares you mentally. And it gives you a different kind of grit and perseverance and self-esteem and confidence that, at least when I talk to many other individuals that haven't attended HBCUs, and I'm talking about African Americans who've attended non-HBCUs or PWIs, I don't hear the same kind of preparation, comprehensive and holistic preparation from them that I know many of us, I dare say all of us, who've walked the grounds of HBCUs get an opportunity to experience. So when we're looking for that next group of talent, those next leaders, the preparation, the holistic preparation coming out of HBCUs seems to be very attractive and seems to be something that positions those graduates in ways that other graduates are not.
Thank you. Dr. Buchanan.
Well, in my field, a lot of graduate schools are coming to HBCU campuses to recruit minority students. They know the excellence that HBCUs produce. So a lot of our students are really sought after. And so when I talk to a lot of high school students who are looking for college, I tell them, go to an HBCU. You can get everything you need academically, socially, and emotionally for those 4 years. And then you're really cream of the crop for the graduate schools, and you have some type of self-confidence that's been built up in you for 4 years. So when you do step out into that real world, you're coming with strength and relationships that you may not get at a PWI, because you may be one in 100 in a class, but at an HBCU, you have a really small, intimate environment. So I always recommend to students who are, looking for different college options to think about the HBCU at the undergrad level, and then think about the big school for graduate school.
Thank you. Forrest, if you'd like to.
Now, let me weigh in with some numbers to make it a family chat, okay? So the last 2 years, the NFL combines did not draft not one player from an HBCU. What does that mean? That means there's a lot of talent still at HBCUs, untapped. Secondly, of the 42,000 paid internships in the US, of the top 200 companies, less than 7% are Black, and less than 3% come off the campuses of HBCUs. What does that mean? There's a lot of untapped talent at HBCUs just waiting, as Dr. Buchanan says, on opportunities. And so to that end, I believe that the experience that an HBCU provides is just a door open away for corporations and government to look for this talent. It's there. So in my case, I really believe the HBCU experience puts you a league above a lot of other opportunities. And if we could just get the corporations and government to shine some more light on the other HBCUs, to include the ones on this call, not only will they be pleased, they'll be more than excited about the talent from HBCU campuses.
Thank you. Nikki.
So I would have to say the panelists said it all, Joy. I would probably just put a book into the last comment to say there's a level of advocacy that's needed. So HBCU graduates are walking kind of testimonials and representation in their fields, their organizations, and so forth. So it's important for graduates or allies of HBCUs. So there are some allies of HBCUs that went to PWIs and some maybe that didn't even go to school and different things like that, but that believe in the HBCUs. They have to also kind of act on behalf of these students and graduates as well, because I think that's what moves this. A lot of organizations will talk about it and write checks, but the full support of students for internships or full support of new hires or folks that come into the organization in any field, you need community. You need community and you need support. And I think that's a gap that's missing just a little bit. But I see it closing. I absolutely do.
Thank you. I'm going to stay on the corporate piece for a minute. Forrest, I'm going to direct this question to you. In this, what I'm going to call, and I'm using air quotes, post George Floyd / social justice awareness era, there are a lot of people who believe that, I say, the renewed focus on partnerships with HBCUs might have a short shelf life. A, are you of that opinion? And B, if not, how do we as alums ensure that it does not have a short shelf life and that this is really the newest beginning and a way and change of how business is done and that continued recognition of the talent that we've discussed so far?
Oh, that's a great question. First of all, let's start with some numbers again. So since the killing of George Floyd, unfortunately, Breonna Taylor and also Amari and others, the Washington Post reported out in January of this year that corporate America has stepped up and committed or reserved $70.1 billion for racial and social justice. So first of all, that's the first number. Secondly, the jury is still out. Because if you give the money to the HBCUs, that's part of that $70 billion, the key is will you hire them? We can look at all the scholarships. We love it. We can look at all the internships, but the jury is still out. Will you hire them? So give it one more year. We're going to see if it's working. And then last but not least is simply believe I do have hope. I have hope that the alumni who are sitting in the C-suites, who are sitting in the boardrooms, and who are sitting in the rooms of the corporations would just turn the light on and say, are you hiring from HBCUs? Are you hiring from HBCUs? Just keep that drumbeat going. So that's my comment about do I still see it at this point?
Does anyone want to add to that?
I'll say, Joy, many organizations and corporations kind of respond to the order of the day or the soup du jour or whatever is sexy right now. And that's a reality. But there's another reality. And that other reality is that the need for diversity of thought in rooms to make the most appropriate decisions does not seem to be a short-term strategy, but a long-term run. That's driven by everything that's associated with all of the unfortunate realities associated with 2020, but it's also related to customer, consumer, and board demand. And when things begin to rise to customer, consumer, and boardroom demand, it puts a different type of strategic prioritization on that work, which gives it a much, much longer shelf life. To Forrest's point, do we know what this is going to look like a year from now, 2 years from now? No, we can't predict that. But are there all the signs and all the predictors that this is going to have long-term sustainability, this focus on bringing Black and brown individuals into corporations and companies, many of them coming from HBCU campuses? It looks like that's going to be the way of the future, at least for the next 3 to 5 years.
And Joy, I would just jump in right behind Michael and say, I think the generations, so like, we have baby boomers that are retiring and will reserve retirement, right? So the students on the campuses and graduates probably within the last however many years are truly holding workplaces accountable. And it's bold, and I think it's the right thing, but that is a very different attitude. So the attitude of a year that folks are graduated earlier, it may be a little more passive. Like, this is an activist type mindset of a different generation that will not let these corporations or these organizations who have made these public commitments go into the corner and begin to walk their dollars back.
Thank you. I'm going to shift away a little bit from the corporate perspective and really more on the alumni perspective. As we all know, institutions, and especially our HBCUs, will need and must thrive. And in order to do that, a portion of that strategy is alumni giving. We also know that several of our institutions have challenges in that space. 2 questions. One, what is your personal philosophy around alumni giving and engagement? And 2, what advice would you give our audience around cultivating increased alumni engagement? Dr. Buchanan, I'll start with you.
Okay, that's a great question. I talk about this a lot with my friends, a few of my classmates that we graduated around the same time. And I think that alumni giving is very important, and everyone strives to give, but people can give at different levels, right? A lot of people who maybe are just now starting their careers, they can't give large donations, but they may have time in which they can give to the campus and to the school. So if you feel like you can't make an impact because you can't provide financial assistance, I want to challenge you there. I think, time is valuable. Giving to the students on the weekends, or maybe just meeting with them outside of their classes, that is a notable cause. I've tried to do that on a grassroots level at Spelman with pre-dental students, just meeting the students where they are. A lot of students, they are not communicating in typical fashion. So they're not emailing as much. They get a lot of spam emails to their college emails. So we try to meet them through GroupMe. We try to meet them through Instagram, through channels in which they communicate. I really feel like the alums of different institutions are going to give their whole selves to their campus. So we need to encourage each other to give back in any way that we feel comfortable, be it money, time, either works. And I think the students are really yearning for that relationship with alums. It's a different type of advice when you know someone has been in the same dormitory or the same classroom you've been in, they've had the same teachers. That relationship and that advice and knowledge that we give our students, it's very valuable.
Thank you. Nikki, would you add to that?
I can, which I absolutely agree with those points. I would say I'm a huge advocate for giving something. And so while it may not be to make the President's Society and to, be at the list or whatever, things like that, we are assessed, like HBCUs are assessed on our alum giving when other organizations are sought after to give to the schools. So I think giving time, talent, and treasure is important. And whatever that looks like, if it is $5, I encourage every HBCU graduate to give. And I would also add, Joy, we have to do a better job of talking about giving and contributing when we're looking in the faces of students. So when you're on the campus as a student, you should know the responsibility and the legacy of giving to your schools. So I would just add that.
Thank you. Either Mike or Forrest, you want to add to that?
This has been a subject that has been a topic of discussion, a significant topic of discussion, probably the past 5 or 6 years, when I've gotten much, much more involved in alumni affairs and things of that sort as it relates to Morehouse. And there are really 3 components of it. Nikki touched on one, and so did Zarita. And one is the amount that you can give. And I'm just focused on financial donations at this point. One is the amount. 2 is the percentage of alumni that give. And then the third is that culture of giving. And there's an opportunity to work on all 3 of those. And what you've heard here is when we talk about the amount, none of us can dictate what's in someone's heart and what's in someone's checkbook. But there are all sorts of opportunities to supplement what the dollar amount may be from alumni support with support outside of alumni. So what I really try to focus on are those other 2, and that is the percentage of. If we increase the percentage of alumni givers, that creates an opportunity to leverage that increased percentage to go out and seek funds from others that are not necessarily affiliated with the institution. And the way you increase that percentage of is create that culture of, you start with the students that are there. I'm really pleased. I know it's happening on Spelman's campus as well. My wife is a Spelmanite. My son just graduated from Morehouse last year. My daughter is finishing up her junior year at Spelman. So I know what's happening on the Morehouse and Spelman campuses. And I know that they are right now, as they are students, talking about the importance, developing that culture of giving, whether it's $5 a month or $25 a year. It doesn't matter. Just increase the percentage. That is an improvement from when I was there in the 80s. We didn't talk about giving, and that was something that you relied on alumni to get to you and talk about. So I'm really pleased that they're developing that culture. So this conversation that we're having about alumni giving, I'm hoping, Joy, in about 5 years, it's going to look a lot different than what it looks like now.
Forrest, you want to add anything?
No, I think you all hit it very, very well. I do believe that the culture is a big part. And at Inroads, all of our graduating seniors from our program goes through a course around giving back. And we talk about that aspect of starting early before they graduate versus once they graduate, then we try to get them back engaged. So I do think it's the biggest part about let's create the culture before they leave. And that culture of giving, I think will last for a long time.
I want to stay on giving for a second. For those of you who may have also attended majority institutions, how would you describe the difference between the culture of the ask? Because sometimes it's more of an art than a science. And larger institutions, in my experience, have a different way of cultivating the ask versus our HBCUs. And I'm really hoping that there are those in our audience who are working in higher institution. And I would just want to give a little bit of color to some of the inherent differences. And then how would you recommend there would be some increased focus from an alumni's perspective on what is successful in the ask?
Hey, Joy, can I just make a comment real quick on this one?
Sure.
I think it was 3 years ago. If I don't get it right, it's either 2019 or 2018. Stanford was the first university in the country to raise $1 billion by their alumni. $1 billion. You know why they raised $1 billion? Because they challenged the alumni to beat Harvard. So what I know when we do at Morgan, we challenge each class. So I'm from the class of 78. We have a pride thing going. We challenge who's going to bring the most money at homecoming. So I would love to see HBCUs challenge each other and the others. How much can we as alumni bring to our own schools? And I think that may be a way of us, that pride, because, if I talk about, one of the schools that I don't particularly care for, like that one of them HUs. Nothing wrong with HUs, but I think Morgan is better. But why don't I just convert that into, let's see at homecoming who can raise the most money as alumni. That's pride for me. I definitely don't want anybody in the MEAC to beat me, okay, even though North Carolina A&T ran before we could get to them. But the bottom line is that I think we need a challenge out there. I think we need fresh challenges to challenge each other. That's my thought.
Joy, to piggyback on that, I'm going back to the word culture. I got my first master's from GW and my second master's from Hopkins. And what I can tell you is, as it relates to the alumni giving, it kind of walks, talks, looks, and smells like any other alumni giving. You get letters, you get emails, you get phone calls. But I got to tell you, that culture of expectation of giving for alumni is strong and it's real. And it is almost a badge of dishonor if you have not contributed and donated in some way. That is not always, it may be, as Forrest mentioned, it may be for certain class groups, the class of grade 88 or the biology, all the biology graduate, those come, or all the Qs and all that kind of thing. So in those small cohorts, there may be a competition or this culture and expectation of giving, but in mass, as graduates, I haven't seen us develop that same culture of expectation and obligation as of yet. But again, what I'm seeing develop on campuses right now, I'm hopeful it's just a matter of time before that new expectation and obligation, that culture that really breeds that expectation and obligation, just becomes deep rooted in how we do what we do going forward as it relates to donors.
If I can jump in, one thing that has worked really well with some of my local colleagues is fundraising on like a departmental level. So we say, okay, these are 5 students in the biology department. We get their picture, we get, some facts about them, where they are from, where they went to high school, and we target groups of alums. So maybe we'll say, hey, this is a group of physicians who went to Howard. We have a student who's right now taking the MCAT, top school is Howard. Can you help donate to this student? Or we'll find another commonality and we'll go to different groups and ask for donations on behalf of the college to help put a name to a face with the student. Sometimes people are more inclined when they feel a direct relationship, instead of just saying, okay, can you give the college this X amount of dollars? If you can say, hey, this student needs this money to pay for the DAT to go to dental school, or they need this money to go on a study abroad, can you help support them that way? That's been very successful for us. It seems like people really respond to that, and it may be a tactic that other schools can try.
Thank you very much. I'm a circle back to something that was mentioned earlier in the discussion, and I want to kind of bring us a different question forward. From a corporate/private foundation donation perspective, we have, as we know, 106 HBCUs and dynamic alum from all of them. How could we, as a collective HBCU family, help raise the awareness of all of our HBCUs when it comes to those big corporate dollars? There are those institutions that are in receipt and grateful for them a lot, but there are so many that are not. And how can we collectively ensure that all of our institutions get the awareness that they deserve, and also make sure that we continue to cultivate and educate globally around the excellence that our HBCUs bring to our economy? Oh, so now you're gonna make me call somebody.
We've got a real world case study here, and I'd like to share it. First of all, I do think there's an opportunity. I think the presidents of HBCUs are doing just an awesome job. They come to work every single day, ensuring that the freshmen that come in the seniors that go out, they try to make the best education they possibly can for them. But they're also fundraisers. And so, but they can't get around to all these companies. So I believe there's an opportunity calling for HBCUs as a collective body to call on the business roundtable. This is the largest group of private sector companies in the business roundtable, and make an ask. It could be for $2 billion. But I think that the HBCUs have the ability to collectively come together and make an ask. We did this recently with the Southern Company right here in Atlanta, one of the largest energy companies in the world. I got together with Dr. Lomax and Dr. Harry Williams over at Thurgood and United Negro College Fund. We went to them and talked to them about HBCU sustainability. They granted us $10 million to do what? To focus on the sustainability of HBCUs, not just the immediacy. And so we got the 10 million. So we're going to pick 4 to 6 HBCUs and focus on their sustainability and the zip code around them. So it is possible, but we've got to think about being a collective body going to make that ask to private sector. That'd be my thought. It's a thought.
Thank you, Mr. Curry.
Yeah, I'm going to second what Forrest said, and that is there's an opportunity for an actual campaign that's FUBU, that's for us, by us. And that's that collective, it's just what Forrest said, that collective body of HBCUs. You can call it a consortium, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but it's a collective body that establishes a campaign that is for the benefit of HBCUs, plural, not for the benefit of 1 or 2 or 5 or 6 or 8. For that to be successful, great idea, it should happen. There's an opportunity for that to happen. But in order for that to become its best self, there also have to be some champions that have essentially been placed in the crowd, if you will, that offer the kind of voice and support to that kind of campaign that we need. And those champions have to come outside the room of the HBCUs. And whether that's corporate presidents, someone in very high levels of government, maybe in the president's cabinet or wherever it's going to come from, there need to be some strategic operatives, if you will, that serve as champions for such a campaign, for it to be as successful as it can be, and then give that campaign some long-standingness. It can't be a 1-year campaign. It can't be a 3-year campaign. Establish a campaign for the next 10 years, next 15 years, next 20 years, so that it really has the kind of longevity and long-term benefit that we want it to have.
And Joy, I would just jump in behind Michael and just, absolutely agree with both comments, because while it's important to have UNCF and a lot of the organizations we do have, Michael Lomax can't do everything to raise money for HBCUs, right? Looking at Forrest, like Inroads can't do everything, because I know Inroads serves many. So we do absolutely what Michael has said. We need those sponsors, and other organizations and other schools have them. And we need to activate that in a way that I won't, claim to know in this moment exactly how to do that, but we have to activate that, and we have to activate it in a moment where the world truly is listening right now. Let's assume that the world will continue to listen. That goes back to your question a few minutes ago. If that's not the case, we cannot miss our moment. And this is our moment, I believe.
Thank you. I want to take you all back, way back into time. And if you think about the young Michael, Forrest, Nikki, Zarita, and thinking about your HBCU experience, thinking about your corporate experience and where you sit now, because we do have those in our audience who are sitting actually with their children who are either contemplating an HBCU, or like Mike and Forrest, who have children who are also graduates or about to graduate from HBCU. What advice would you give the younger versions of yourselves to absolutely maximize their potential and their experience, not only on campus, but to set them up for further success once they graduate? Sarita, I'll begin with you.
I think one of the best lessons I learned while I was at Spelman was the power of networking. I think sometimes we're taught you have to meet the president, you have to meet the CEO, but Spelman really taught me, don't forget to network with the people around you who are in the same place as you at that time. We tend to want to shoot for the top, but building relationships and showing respect to people who work in the cafeteria, the maintenance crew, you never know when you're going to need assistance from someone else. So Spelman really taught me the power of being humble, how to build relationships with everyone. And that's something I carried over when I did go to graduate school, and it helped me a lot. So I think, when I meet students, I always try to remind them, treat everyone with respect, be humble at all times. And once you get to the place that you're striving to be, always, keep a hand out for somebody else who's trying to walk through that same door as you.
Thank you. Forrest?
Yeah, I would say my younger self, Forrest, don't be afraid to take risk. And I say that because I was kind of a cautionary guy. I said, no, I got to have some predictability over here, and that's too much risk. But it probably denied me from exploring things early on that I could have had an opportunity to, but I didn't, because I thought it was just too risky. And I would just take more risks to explore things that you're not used to. Like my wife did when she tried to introduce me to broccoli. I was a Southern boy, so if it wasn't fried, I wasn't eating it. But anyway, but I now eat broccoli, by the way. So just want you to know. But anyway, I just think that it's about risk. It'd be okay. It's okay. It's okay to take risks.
Nikki?
With both statements before me. So my order in all of this, Joy, is really important because I get to agree with everyone that goes before me. So I think that's pretty great. But I'd also say, to the younger Nikki, be curious. So this goes a little bit to taking the risk as well, but be curious. The world is out there, and really get very deep into this curiosity that you have. Don't worry about where the curiosity is going to take you, but remain curious, because in stay, I have to remain quite curious in my current chair, and I have to actually, nurture that within the organization that I lead today.
And Mike?
I deal with this question, Joy, on a pretty regular basis. And depending on either the parents that I'm talking to or the high school student I'm talking to will dictate my answer. If it's because their focus is going to be a little different. And what I mean by that is, if it's a kid that's an athlete, they want to talk about the facilities, what kind of swag gear you're going to have, who you're playing, do we have any TV time, everything and I get that. I live that life. I get it. So I understand that perspective. And if it's a non-athlete kid, they're thinking about some of the same things, but in a little bit different way, the perception of the school, where it ranks, and things like that. My response, in a little bit of a nuanced way, but I'm going to hang on the common thread to my response to both of those students, is the soft skills that you're going to get. You can go to any school you want to go to and get academically enriched. Pick any one you want, from community college all the way to a 4-year institution. The only place you're going to get the soft skills associated with developing a self-confidence and self-esteem and grit and perseverance, learning how to network, learning about community and how important it is for you to contribute to uplifting community and enriching community, the societal good that you have an obligation to pay attention to. Those kinds of soft skills out of the classroom, the only place you will get that in the most meaningful way is on an HBCU campus, period, end of story.
If I had a microphone, I'd just drop it, but I don't have one right now. So,
I concur.
Pivoting again, I would like for each of you, if you don't mind, to share with our listening audience. We've talked about treasure. We've talked about talent. Let's talk about time. Time from an alumni engagement perspective. How do you share your time with your institution or institutions, if you would be so kind? Nikki, I'm start with you first.
A couple of different ways. I'm fortunate enough that I've finished 2 HBCUs, so very proud of that. And so it's literally volunteerism. My sister finished in 92 from Spelman, and obviously I was in 97. So we have done mentoring of current Spelmanites, like little sisters and things like that. Additionally, there's a considerable amount of time that's taken to fundraise for Spelman. And so again, you would think when you go back to the earlier question about how do we make sure that HBCUs, kind of get this piece of the pie from corporations, a lot of the philanthropists and the activity around philanthropy happens by volunteers. And so I've been active in that space as well. And this is a small thing, but it's really important. I do mock interviews with students. You're going to go in to get that job. You're going to go in to apply for law school or whatever it is. And you sit and you listen. And over the pandemic, it became even easier because you could do it over Zoom, so you didn't have to go over to campus. So a couple of different ways, but those are some of the most significant ones for sure.
Thank you. Zarita.
So I participate with an organization called Increasing Diversity in Dentistry. In short, we call it I Did. But it's basically a collection of pre-dental students across the nation. The majority of them are coming out of HBCUs. And so we do a lot of different programs. It's changed significantly because of the pandemic. We've been virtual for the past 2 years. But we allow student shadowing opportunities. We create a symposium where they can come and meet with different dental school representatives. And we basically prep them to be competitive applicants. Out of over 200,000 dentists in America, only 3% are Black. And research has always shown that minority providers go back to minority communities. And so the purpose of I Did is to make sure we diversify the workforce and continue to provide people who look like us with physicians and dentists who represent their community. So I've done a lot of grassroots efforts at Spelman. We've been very successful. Last year, we had 7 students gain acceptance into dental school, which is great. This year, we are partnering with Morehouse, and we have 15 active students in our cohort. Our goal really is to help the students gain direct entry into dental school after graduation. We know that the student loan crisis is hitting a lot of students hard. Not only are students paying for undergrad, they're having to pay for gap years to do a master's or a post-bac, and then they're paying for 4 years of graduate school. So when we talk about preserving wealth in the Black community, we have to think about the direct entry into graduate school. If that's what we're going to students towards, we need to find the most economical way for them to do it. So I Did helps to make them competitive applicants so that they can gain direct entry into dental school.
Excellent. Mike.
Yeah, Joy, it's really 3, and I normally don't I don't deviate from the three. I stay with these three, and that's my mouth, my money, and my shadow. My mouth is I try to be an advocate, a promoter, an encourager to get others who graduated when I did, before I did, after I did, to be involved. I was literally just talking to my son about this not too long ago. And as a recent graduate, obviously the first thing out of his mouth is, Dad, I'm not even making that much money. And my comment to him is, dude, it could be $5 a month. And I know you have $5 a month. So I try to promote, encourage, and advocate. The second is my money, and I donate. And I donate in a way that is comfortable for me, but also is meaningful to the institution and the students that we're donating for. I try to find that healthy balance. And the last one is really the shadow. I get it because I know when I graduated, that first 10 or so years, I wasn't doing much for Mother Morehouse. And it really wasn't anyone talking to me about what I should be doing and could be doing, because that just would have made me angry and probably sent me the other way. What the one person who, with that one person who every so often would just sort of ask me what I was doing. Are you coming to homecoming? Are you coming to Founders Day? Didn't bother me a whole lot. What he did was cast a shadow. And what I mean by cast a shadow was he just very quietly, without even saying it, was saying, Mike, just watch what I do. Just watch what I do. And any way that you can mirror what I do, if what I do resonates with you, just watch what I do. And I've adopted that, and hopefully it's being successful. It's, right here in my own house with my son. Let's hope it's being successful.
Thank you. And Forrest?
Yes. Mine was very deliberate. Mine's is very deliberate. I'm admiring the leadership skills on this call tonight. So I decided when I got to corporate America, I was going to give my leadership skills back to Morgan somewhere down the line. You don't have to be on the board of trustees. You could be a dean advisory board. Take our leadership skills back to our alma mater. They need it. They can get help. So I volunteer. I'm the chair of the dean of the business schools, dean advisory, and I'm on the fund development board. So there are two boards I commit to with time, but I bring my leadership skills to help with those two areas. So just imagine if our alumni think about why you're in corporate America. Don't wait till you leave. Just think about what leadership skills you could bring to our HBCUs. They're in need. If you can be an executive on loan, that would be a good item. The last one, most important to me, is that it's my family. I have a scorecard. I have a dashboard. Oh yeah, all those corporate terms, right? On where every third cousin, distant cousin, niece, nephew is about to go to college. And if they're not, I'm on them. Why? Because, Mike, as some of you said, I have an obligation to make sure if I had an experience in college, particularly at an HBCU, dial them up. Okay? Dial them up. When my cousins said, I don't think that any of my kids can go to college because I can't afford the application fee for them to send their applications to the school. I go, excuse me, time for a family chat. We get on the phone. I go, did you know in the state of Florida, if you make less than this amount of money and they want to go to a public university like an HBCU, the application fee is waived. That's the obligation I have. That's where I spend my time. Don't forget about family. We got cousins, nieces, got kids. Get involved. Stay involved with them when it comes to thinking about the HBCUs and thinking about what we can do for them. So that's where I spend my time.
Thank you. This has been beyond riveting, eye-opening, and engaging. We have about 5 minutes left. And before we end, I would like to give each of you an opportunity, I'd say take a minute and a half each to do a 2-part commercial. First part of the commercial is telling the audience about your HBCU experience, but your audience is one, a student, and the other half of your comment is to a corporation to encourage them to engage, whether it's financially through programs, whatever that might be. But what is your commercial to those audiences? And I'm start with the ladies first, Dr. Buchanan.
Okay, this is a hard one. So first, I would tell any student, Spelman's going to be the best decision you ever made. Literally, you won't regret it. I applied to one college, and it was all or nothing. So I'm so glad that I graduated from Spelman. If I was talking to, I'm not in the corporate sector, but if I was talking to graduate schools, I would tell them, if you believe in health equity, if you're serious about your mission, if you want to eliminate access to care, if you want to eliminate health disparities, you need to recruit and support the students that you're admitting into your school. And the way that you support them is making sure your faculty is diverse, making sure you have financial support for these students, and making sure you're coming to them. A lot of students, specifically students in the South, they're not going to California to visit a school. They don't have the means to go to the Northeast to visit a school. You need to come to them, recruit where they are. If you want the best and the brightest, you need to go to HBCUs.
Thank you. Nikki.
For the student, I would say, Joy, there's a t-shirt that I have and many folks have it. My HBCU changed my life. So my HBCUs changed my life, and my husband went to Xavier. So our little family of HBCUs definitely was important for all of us. So if you're looking for a life-changing experience, go to an HBCU. Of course, go to Spelman and enjoy the ride. From a corporate perspective, and I do make this pitch often in support of where people or groups will cast their nets for talent. And if you want the best and brightest, and you want a group of students or new employees that will absolutely plus up your team, you got to get on an HBCU campus. You have to do that. It is the best and the brightest. So it's probably not a minute and a half, but that's a part of the pitch that I deliver quite often.
I love it. Thank you. Mr. Harper.
Yes. First of all, the students, if you want an experience in areas that are unique, particularly in about closing the racial wealth gap in America, come to Morgan State. Why do you want to come to Morgan? Morgan is the only HBCU that has a FinTech center that all HBCUs come to train. You didn't know that. Morgan also has a seismology center, the study of earthquakes. Morgan also has the largest number of PhDs for Black students in the state of Maryland. You will have a lot of fun. Corporate America, you are my favorite audience. Why? Because I'm going to share something with you you don't want to miss. There are 101 HBCUs in this nation. Unfortunately, corporate America tends to go to just about 12 or 13. There are 90 more out there plus to look at. I was just on the phone this morning with the president of Rusk College in Mississippi. This lady is turning things upside down at that beautiful HBCU. There are more HBCUs. Spread it out. Jokingly, you can't fit another car in the parking lot of Howard, so you need to come to more school. I know Howard ain't on the call, so I'm just going to leave it as is, okay? But we've got 90 more. Spread it out, corporate America. And then last but not least, corporate America, you will be judged, I promise you, a year to year and a half from now. When you said you made a commitment in that $70 billion, I'm going to be looking. Did you hire them? Or did you just give them scholarships? Hiring is the key indicator that you got it, and you're going to be beautiful for it. It's going to bring diversity like you've never seen it before. So corporate America, do one more thing for me. Get your culture ready for these beautiful Black and brown kids coming from HBCUs, because your corporate ain't ready yet. Your culture ain't ready yet, corporate America. Not for this beauty, but you should get ready. You got another year, because they're going to explode your corporations and make them more beautiful. Thank you.
All right, Mike, you got to come with it.
So, I'm going to keep it real simple. So I'd tell the student, if you want to go to school and get smart, get educated, go wherever you want to go. If you want to go to school and get your life right and get your head right, you can't help but walk on the campus of a HBCU, especially when we talk about the mystique that comes with the Morehouse campus. And the Spelman ladies understand at least the language of the Morehouse mystique. That's what I would tell the students. You want to get your head right and get your life right? It's not even a question. For the corporations, if you're looking for somebody smart, go wherever you want to go. Pick whoever you want to pick. If you're looking for that well-rounded talent that can come and help your organization in many different ways, that brings many and varied talents into the door of your organization, you don't have a choice but to show up on the HBCU campus and recruit. The end.
We cannot thank each of you enough for this wisdom that has been offered on this panel tonight. I'm hopeful and prayerful that our audience has taken at least 12 things from each of you. And also for those who are alums of HBCUs, will take that knowledge and apply it forward. From time, talent, treasure, engagement, corporate, student, family, organizationally, we all have a responsibility to ensure the vibrancy and sustainability of our HBCUs community. Thank you again, Zarita, Mike, Forrest, Nikki. This has been a pleasure. You've offered entertainment, which I knew was going to happen in the first place. And we could keep this conversation going forever. Thank you again. And to our listening audience, have a great evening. Good night.